Hello everyone, it is Caitlin, and today I'm going to teach you 3 different ways to put watch pockets into your mid-19th century dresses. Alright, so today is really about the 1850s and the 1860s, because earlier than that I see a lot more of just sticking your watch pocket into a belt as opposed to actually having a pocket for it. As always, you're going to need to do your own research to your area and your target year to see what's appropriate for your impression. So this is not a video that's going to apply to everyone because a lot of people did not put watch pockets in their skirts. There are lots of originals without watch pockets. Personally, I do a fair bit of dough sitting, which means I need to keep to a schedule. I say need to because I'm actually really bad about that. Even when I write the script of what we're supposed to follow. I always go long, and even with a watch to keep me on track, I don't always follow the scripts. But I do generally carry a pocket watch with me to at least appear as if I'm going to try to keep on time. So I do make a lot of watch pockets. I don't actually own any original dresses that have watch pockets in them, so we're going to be looking at some online pictures today to get an idea of what we need to do. Hi, quick interjection. I was editing this video and realized that I made it sound like if you were wearing a pocket watch, you had to have a watch pocket in your dress, and that is not true, even for the 1850s and 60s. You can wear it tucked in your belt like you see it in the 1830s. I've seen pictures of them around people's necks. I have seen pictures of them tucked into your skirt placket, so where your skirt opens on the side, you'll see them just kind of tucked in there. Let's see, what else? Just dangling from the skirt, really. And I've also seen tucked up underneath the bodice. So there's usually a little opening from your skirt opens up at the side front, and your bodice closes up the front. And so there would be a little tiny opening where there's nothing sewn together, and you just tuck it right up in there as well. So wanted to make sure that was very clear. And also, I realized I got through this whole video and didn't talk about the watch pockets that you see like Godey's in the Workwoman's Guide, little decorative ones that are really pretty. Those are not to be worn. They are meant to hang at your bedside and have your watch stand upright at night. Because a lot of these watches would not stay running, they wouldn't keep time correctly if they were not stood upright. And so instead of laying them down on your dresser, you would put them in what is called a watch pocket. And so the fancy decorative ones that you see patterns for are not to be worn on your body. They are just meant to have something decorative to put your pocket watch in at night. And I think that's it. I think that's the 2 things I was supposed to tell y'all. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I want to make sure those 2 things were very clear. And let's just continue on with what I was talking about. So here is one way to put in a watch pocket, and I would say, just looking at originals, that this was the most common way to put in a watch pocket. It's just a little half moon pocket set into a waistband. These are super easy to put in, and they're fairly invisible when they're done. You see these pockets done both out of the fashion fabric, so the silk or the wool or the cotton that you're doing the dress in, and also of lining fabric such as polished cotton. It will show slightly from the right side, but generally you wouldn't notice if it was made out of the lining fabric. You can do either or. If you really don't have any fashion fabric left, you can do out of lining, but I find since it shows slightly, I prefer to do them out of fashion fabric. And here is watch pocket style number 2. This one is put into the side seam, almost like a miniature regular pocket, basically. You often see these out of lining fabric, just like the regular pocket, and it's just on a smaller scale. This style is nearly invisible, actually it is invisible, when it is put in, so it is the least noticeable out of all the styles. And here is the final style. So this is an actual just like patchwork pocket on the front of the waistband. And I say patchwork, but it is out of the fashion fabric. If you have a pattern to your fabric, you're going to match that pattern exactly, so it is next to not noticeable when it is being worn. And in the 1850s and 60s, you see this done on a waistband. As you go on through the decades, I noticed a lot in the 1880s, they still do this patchwork type pocket, only they do it further up. They do it on the bodice. Let's start by putting in a watch pocket at the waist. So I have here a little scrap of the dress silk. Mine is about 2 3/4 inch wide. It's going to vary depending on your watch. So measure your watch around it and be sure to add a seam allowance. So my watch is about 2 inches. So 2 3/4, that means, roughly 3/8 inch seam allowance on either side. So that works. I did go ahead and finish this top edge and the bottom edge. You could have also done piping. I've seen piping on original, so that edge can be piped. I chose to leave it not piped. So, alright, so we're going to fold it in half. I got a nice little strip. And then I'm going to take this watch, put it where it's going to sit. You can kind of see our little seam allowance. But we're going to go ahead and cut out a watch-ish shape. There we go. So now we have that. So I've seen them shaped more often than I've seen them squared. I don't think I've actually seen one squared. So yes, definitely shape it. And now we have two pieces. So I take my needle and thread. You can also do this part by machine, but I just find it easier to do it by hand. And we're just going to sew all the way around the little watch pocket. Now you have a fabric that's going to ravel, like this one's fairly ravelly. Go ahead and overcast these edges all the way around. Alright, so now I have a little watch pocket. Go ahead and check, make sure your watch still fits. There we go. And that's how it's going to fit. Let's go get our skirt. So I have here a silk skirt. I've almost finished sewing in the waistband, but not entirely because the watch pocket's going to go right here. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and take our watch pocket, turn the dress backwards basically, put our watch pocket where we want it to go. Where you want it probably depends on whether you're left or right-handed. I tend to put mine on the left side, but it's whatever is comfortable for you. And we're going to take this and just whip it to the pleats, or if you have a gauge skirt, whip it to the gauging. So we're doing the one that's closest to the pleating itself. So we're going to leave this open. We're not sewing them both down, we're just sewing one of them. So there's still a pocket there. We're just going to whip that all in like you would whip a waistband. So we're not using the waistband either yet. We'll get there. And so that part of the pocket is completely sewn down. So from the front you just see the pleats, and we have a little pocket there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew in our waistband. So the waistband is going to get tacked to this other end, so the end that we did not tack down to the pleats. Go ahead and pick that up. Make sure you're only sewing in the pleats on the pleat side, and then on this side only getting the one part of your pocket and then the waistband. You want to make sure you still have a pocket afterwards. If you sew anything else, you're not going to have a pocket. Now, of course, on the other side of this, we're going to sew our waistband as normal. So I haven't quite sewn this bit. I'm going to go ahead and attach these pleats. And when we're finished sewing, on the back you have your little watch pocket hanging from your waistband, and on the front you just see what you would normally see. You might be able to see a few stitches. If you do really tiny stitches, you'll only be able to tell that. This may pull open slightly, but once you get your waistband on and put on, you won't see it. So test it, make sure your watch fits in there. And there you go. So this style is really nice because you don't have to wear a pocket watch with it. This becomes basically invisible. So if you don't need to wear a watch pocket all the time, or a pocket watch all the time, then you can just leave it here and no one notices it. It is not the most invisible method we'll discover today, but it's mid-range. So out of the 3 watch pockets we're going to put in today, this one is the middle in terms of visibility. It is the easiest to find, it's the easiest to put a watch in, but yeah, that is watch pocket number 1. Now for the second style. I'm going to cut my pocket out the same way we did last time, but this time out of lining fabric. Just measure around your watch and add seam allowance. Remember to cut 2 pieces. Now I'm going to sew across my pocket down just like we did last time. We're going to leave a little bit open, just about a seam allowance width, so about 3/8 of an inch open at the top. So I'm going to start stitching here, go around, stop stitching here. Once it's sewn together, check the fit. Looks good. Now we're going to sew it into the side seams. So pick a seam that's fairly close to the front. You don't want it too far over the back, or else it's going to be cumbersome to get to. I'm going to choose the seam that's right above where my normal pocket is. So I'm just going to do a couple inches above that. And we're going to sew it in like a normal pocket. Make sure we close up on any of the seams that are extra once we're done sewing that together. And here's our watch pocket. As a reminder, this one is easier to do before you pleat or gauge your skirt. Alright, let's talk about another watch pocket that you see. You see this more in the 1880s, really. Just kind of a not really patchwork pocket, but piece of the fashion fabric on the bodice as a watch pocket. You see that a lot in the 80s, but you do occasionally see it earlier. The couple examples I've seen have all been on waistbands, whereas in the 80s it's like literally on the bodice. But yeah, it's in the 50s and 60s, the ones I have seen have been on a waistband. So that's what we're going to do today. I have this very wild, crazy 1850s print that I forgot to add a watch pocket to, so we're going to add one today. You're going to need a little scrap of the actual fashion fabric, and if you have a crazy print, you're going to want to try to match it so it doesn't really look noticeable if you're not wearing the watch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this where I think it should go, roughly. Trying to match out, like there's that. There we go. Alright. Now we're going to cut it off into our watch pocket shape. And we're going to cut it right here, I think. And then about here. Sometimes it may be helpful to actually pin this thing down. I'm going to just wing it. Okay. That back where it was. Alright. So determine exactly where you want the watch pocket. I'm going to pin it for this part. So we're going to kind of cut our watch pocket shape. You want it more on this side. Remember, you're going to need to add seam allowances. We're going to turn this raw edge under. So make it big. So if I put my watch right here, and it's about right here, I use my seam allowance. Alright. So take that off. I'm going to fold it in half. See how I didn't make that even? We're going to just even that back up. That way it looks nice. So now we have our watch pocket shape. We're going to turn in the edges all the way around so we don't see any raw edges. Now I have a very narrow waistband for my watch, so it's going to stick out a bit, and that's okay. But if you have a wider waistband, you might as well just fill up the whole thing. And then before you start stitching down, it's a really good idea to actually put your watch in there and make sure it's going to fit. Which mine will. So now I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I got boning in here too, so this is going to be a little bit hard to work around. I'm going to do a back stitch all the way around that watch pocket. And as annoying as this is, it actually is easier than shoving it into a machine. So once you tap your thread, you should have something that looks fairly, not noticeable. And your watch should fit right inside. Thank you so much for joining me today to learn about watch pockets for pocket watches. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you back here on Monday.